USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veterans' stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is Jim Schaefer. I am the Vice Chair to the National Navy UDT SEAL Museum. I've been involved with the Navy SEAL Museum for just over 12 years. My original exposure to the museum came through a original plank SEAL from Vietnam named Jim Watson. We became very close, and at the end of the day, I made a promise to him to keep the museum going, and that's what I'm still doing. I later met Rick Kaiser, who's the current CEO. Rick had just finished 34 years or so in the Navy, had come down to be the executive director. I met him here during muster in 2012, and together and through a lot of effort and a great team, we've moved this museum into to be an international first-class military museum. So here at the museum, we function on three main pillars. Our first pillar is to preserve the legacy and the heritage of the Navy Frogman. Our second pillar is to recognize our fallen, both killed in action, killed in training on the memorial wall, which is on the grounds here at the museum. And our third mission is called Trident House Charities. And this program has four components to it. We have a K-9 program, we offer direct family services, we offer scholarships to kids K through 12, and we have two Trident houses that allow guys coming off mission, coming off training, Gold Star families to come down and decompress and be together and have time to reflect and enjoy themselves here. So the museum, initially its primary arm was started out to be a place of maintaining artifacts and maintaining the legacy and heritage of the museum. I like to use the example that Britt Sablinski uses, a Medal of Honor recipient of Navy SEAL, who said that, you know, the DNA for the Navy SEAL and everything that's come from UDT, NCDU, is here in this museum. And every piece you see, every piece you look at and read about here is that built-in DNA. So that in itself is the basis for preserving the legacy and the heritage and forever educate our patrons to what and how these guys evolved over the years. So currently we're very excited to be involved in an international project, probably our largest project outside of the local area here, to bring to life a monument park on the beaches of Normandy and Omaha Beach. So this year is a landmark year. It's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And we started this project just 14 months ago. And our goal was to have this finished by D-Day in 2024. We're very excited to have this because this park will be the only actual monument park in all of the Normandy beaches where you can go, educate yourself, reflect, gather, and really immerse yourself in what these brave men did on D-Day.
My name is Rick Kaiser. I'm a retired Navy SEAL Master Chief. I served 34 years at SEAL Team 2 and then at SEAL Team 6. At what time I took the job as the Executive Director of the National Navy SEAL Museum, and I was recently promoted, God bless him, to Chief Executive Officer of the museum, both in Fort Pierce, Florida, and now in San Diego, California. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, there was no such thing as a frogman. They didn't exist. We did not have a need as a country to have hard Navy men going on the beaches and exploding or blowing up these obstacles because they didn't exist either. When the Germans started putting the obstacles along the beaches of France, obviously our intelligence folks said, hey, how are we going to defeat these obstacles? How are we going to get these landing craft for the eventual invasion across the beaches, with these obstacles? So the Navy came up with this plan to create some sort of unit to take the obstacles off the beaches. And that's where our Draper Kaufman, who we consider the father of naval special warfare, came into the picture. He was a highly trained explosives expert, one of the very few in the U.S. Navy. He was also an Annapolis graduate. They basically brought him back and commissioned him as a U.S. naval officer and said, hey, we need you to figure out how to take care of these obstacles. They sent him down here to Fort Pierce, and that's what he did. He created Naval Combat Demolition Units right here in Fort Pierce. And their sole purpose in life was to take out the obstacles in Normandy and the other beaches in France. That's everything from figuring out what explosives to use on what obstacles. In Fort Pierce here, they had Navy Seabees, you know, some of the hardest working sailors in the Navy that actually had to recreate the obstacles that the Germans were making so our guys could practice blowing them up. And a lot of these Seabees actually ended up becoming Naval Combat Demolition Unit members. So that's what they did here. So they, for a year, 1943 to 1944, to the day in June, I can't remember what the exact day was, they trained and then they deployed over to Europe, to England specifically, to get ready to do the invasion. So of the 175 Naval Combat Demolition Unit members they had, they usually are broken down to boat crews. So a little boat called an inflatable boat small, and it's just a little rubber boat. They would load them up with explosives, and they would usually have about 6 enlisted men and 1 officer per boat. And they had their job was to open up lanes through the obstacle field because there was thousands of these obstacles on the beach, and there's no way they could have taken them all out, right? So they had specific lanes that they had to open that were about 100 yards long by 50 yards wide. And they would actually go in there, measure it, and go in there, okay, we got to take these out, we got to take these out. Now, most of these obstacles also had explosive mines on them. So when a landing craft hit it, it would disable the landing craft or slow it down enough for the German artillery and machine gun fire to take these out. So these guys came under withering fire because they were the very first on the beach, right? And they knew what they had to do, and the Germans also knew it. So that's why we took such a high casualty rate of like 52% of the 175 guys, 31 killed, and I can't remember how many were wounded. 60 were wounded, yes. Obviously, no unit can sustain a 52% casualty rate. So that's when they had to start thinking of different ways to do this. Since it was the first one, you know, it worked, but they took the heavies, and then that's when they started thinking about putting them in the water and actually making them swimmers. And that's when the underwater demolition team came from. What we're talking about today, the Scouts and Raiders NCDU Monument Park in Normandy, France, does exactly that. We are remembering what those men did on that day, because if they had not succeeded, I mean, we could be speaking German right now. You don't know. That's why, you know, that's why this museum is here, and that's what we will strive to do. And this is just one project before we go on to the next one, to honor other folks that have done great things for this country, and that's my job.
Yeah, morning. I'm Rick Willard. I'm a retired SEAL captain. I was in the teams from 1966 to 96, a couple of tours in Vietnam. I commanded SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 6, and I was the guy who came up with the name DevGru for that organization. I've been volunteering with the museum for off and on since 2005. I'm currently the chairman of the board of directors of the National Navy UDT SEAL Museum. Good time to be chairman was when a group of us went to Normandy in 2019 on a D-Day cruise and noticed that there was no monument or memorial or anything denoting what had happened to the Naval Combat Demolition Units at Omaha Beach. They took very heavy casualties there and were one of only 2 or 3 units which received was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, for the highest award that a unit can earn in the military. September of 22, in my capacity as chairman, I wrote up a charter for a special committee to create a monument on Omaha Beach to the Naval Combat Demolition Units and Scouts and Raiders to be dedicated on or before June 6, 2024, which is the 80th anniversary of the landings there. I was able to make 2 really good choices as to who was going to lead the project. One was having Ryan McCombie, who's another retired SEAL captain, on our board of directors. Ryan just happened to have served with the French SEALs for 3 years back in the 1970s. So Ryan lived for a year in Normandy, speaks French fluently, and so he was ideal to be able to coordinate everything. And the other one is Todd Perry. Todd is our executive director of our museum, in the process of getting ready to build in San Diego, and a very energetic man. And he was one of the people who noted that we needed to have a monument on Omaha Beach. And Todd is just we call him the honey badger. He's just a ball of energy, and he will get things done. A third and a fourth person that were really crucial to the effort were a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel logistics type named Valerie Prihoda. She spends a lot of her time in France. She lived right on the beach at Utah, where the landings took place. But she's well acquainted with that area, and with the politics. And she's actually helped to create one or two monuments that are on Utah Beach already. And the other person was Jean-Francois Tardivaux. Jean-Francois was the captain. He's a retired captain in the French Navy. His military credentials are command of several ships and command of Commando Hubert, the French nageurs de combat. They're combat swimmers, their equivalent of the SEALs. He also rowed across the Atlantic single-handedly when he was in his 60s. So he's the right sort of guy you want to have on your side. If I had to invent a location to put this, this is exactly the place I would put it. It overlooks the beaches where the NCDUs and the Gap assault teams came ashore. The terrain is hilly there. You can't quite see the water's edge, the beach itself, but you can see the water where they came across. People don't realize when you go to Normandy to Omaha Beach, particularly this section of it, it looks like it's all nice white sand. But on D-Day, there was a lot of shingle there. Shingle being small, round, flat stones that litter the shoreline. And there's not very little shingle there now, because on D-Day and the days after that, our troops scraped up the shingle off the beach and pushed it up the hill to make a road to the high ground. That road goes right through our monument site. In fact, when I was there for the ribbon cutting ceremony in December, the French contractor who's doing all the foundation work over there, Philippe Rigaud, gave us all a piece of stone that he had taken from the site when they started excavating to put the foundation in. He gave us one of these stones, and I brought it back. And I gave mine to a woman named Cheryl McCleskey. Cheryl's father was an NCDU man in World War II. His name was Alfredo Martin Palacios. He was an NCDU 131. He came ashore within sight of the monument. His boat was hit before he even could get onto the beach, and he ended up being severely wounded in one arm. But he did what he could to blow the obstacles that day, and managed to capture or accept the surrender of 3 German soldiers. The next day, they evacuated him to England, and they took off his arm above the elbow, which didn't slow him down at all. He went back to San Francisco, got married, and had 6 kids. And so Cheryl and her brothers and sisters, most of whom I think live in Virginia Beach now, will be there at the place where their father was wounded when we dedicate this on the 30th of May. Centerpiece of the ceremony will take place around the centerpiece of the monument itself, which will be a Czech hedgehog. Most devastating obstacles that the Germans used in hopes of fending us off from our invasion. It looks, for those of you who can't see it, looks like a giant jack, and it's made of 3 pieces of heavy steel welded together in the form of a triple X, and it was meant to impale boats and slow down people as they came ashore. And that is going to be the centerpiece of the monument itself. The monument will have walls around it that explain what happened on D-Day, what happened before D-Day, why D-Day had to happen, and what happened after that. But that monument will be the centerpiece, and it will be surrounded by a low wall, and in the wall, inside the wall will be sand from 100 places around the world where SEALs have fought, trained, bled, been stationed, earned medals of honor, been killed. I collected these sands from all over the world when I did the SEAL monument in Virginia Beach. Those sands are in the surrounding the centerpiece of our monument in Virginia Beach. They're here at the museum at our memorial wall, and they will be there in France. And we will have people who had connection to the places where the sand originated actually empty the sand, add the sand to the living beach during the ceremony. So it's to me that's an essential thing to do here, because by doing that, a little piece of the place where these things happen will always be there in France at our monument. So it's just as it is here at the museum and just as it is in Virginia Beach.
Hi, good morning. My name is Valerie Prihoda. I'm a retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel. Sure, I joined the Marine Corps on St. Patty's Day, 1983 on purpose, and retired in September of 2003 after I came back from the war in Iraq. I started out as a motor transport officer, then moved into logistics. From there, went into acquisitions and ended up my career as a civil affairs officer. I was born in Illinois, been raised in Upper Michigan, but my mother's French. So I had the choice at 16 to dual nationality or not. So that's my connection with France is because of my mother. And when I retired from civil service in 2016, I moved to France, bought a house there. And the first project that I was involved with was a little monument to honor the NCDU on Utah Beach, and in particular, Angelo Chattas, who was one of the first on the beach. It was that little modest NCDU stele, if we call it, that morphed into my association with the Omaha Beach NCDU Monument Park that we're in the process of constructing right now. And that's how I got really involved with the Navy SEAL Museum and the Navy SEAL community at large. I want to say that the French, especially in Normandy and in the northern part of France, are extremely patriotic, and they're extremely grateful for Americans, that the sacrifices that our soldiers, airmen, Marines, everybody, our military made to secure their freedoms that they have today. Their lives are entwined with that. And so for them, it's very moving and it's very powerful. And for us, it's extremely powerful when we go to Normandy and other places, especially in the northern part of France, where we see how much love and respect that the French have for our sacrifices. We need to ensure that future generations at least have a feel for what our predecessors accomplished during incredible times of stress, without the kind of resources that we have nowadays, and the heroism that they exhibited. Who knows what impact that's going to make on a young person's life? That's why I am involved with those kind of things, because it's for our young people, and it's also for our elders who may have been involved with those activities, who parents were impacted by World War II. That there's a continuity there that's not lost, and that's why it's so critically important to have monuments of that nature.
So the museum, of course, here in Fort Pierce, sits on hallowed ground. I mean, this is where the men had just a few weeks to come here, train, and it wasn't much later they went over to Normandy on Omaha Beach and carried out that mission on that day. It's kind of a full circle for them, and as part of the mission of the museum, that legacy piece, we're obligated to educate the world about these types of events. As they say, lest we not forget. We don't want to repeat history, and so we're obligated to do that. So we're doing that in France.